So you don't have to consider this my application to be the next big feminist internet cult leader, but I would like for you to hear me out. And for that reason, I did try to make this conversation as concise as possible and fight the internal urge to be a Southern autistic babe and wear this out in the most specific and nuanced way possible, analyzing every possible angle, okay? So for that reason, I'm going to ask you to try to watch till the end because I'm going to connect a lot of things together. And on the note of trying to be as concise as possible, please understand that that means I cannot wear out every angle. And so if you want to bring that up in the comment section, which I really want to talk to you about this because I think feedback and discussion is a great way to understand things, especially for me, especially human behavior. Don't be mean and be like, you're purposely ignoring da 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 da. I probably thought of it, but like wanted to summarize for the sake of ensuring that this wasn't like antagonizingly long video, okay? Blah, blah, blah. I'm Katie Rocks. I talk about philosophical thoughts and societal issues, and I make music and art, blah, blah, blah. Subscribe to me. Let's just dive in, okay? Old school YouTube vlog style. I really want to talk about what I've been what is that? Oh my God. Sorry. That's fucking Apple's always charging me for some shit I don't remember buying. I really want to talk about what I've been calling virtue feminism and the way that it's been influencing not only women's dating patterns, behaviors, all of that, but how it's been impacting the way that women treat other women.
I cannot believe how women still fall for this bullshit.
Interesting. Seeing how many young women and girls are embracing being so-called soft girls over being labeled a feminist.
In the year of Bonnie Blue and Sydney Sweeney's bathwater being sold, I have things to say.
Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, I do not support all women, and I think some of you need to be left behind by the movement because you're doing more harm than good. And every time we try to save you, you just sink 5 more people, and we just got to leave you where you are until you decide that you want better, and then we can help you, but we're not going to drag you along. So it's not like every woman, it's not that women can't be harmful and we need to make space. It's not that, babes. It's not that. But I think there is a difference in between critiquing genuinely harmful, problematic behavior, as I spoke about a bit in my article about Handmaid's Tale fans, in the way that even though they allegedly hold like leftist views, they are obsessed with a character who is basically like a fascist, and that doesn't make sense. And it makes me very concerned that like their politics don't translate to their personal lives in a way that like is harmful for the ecosystem of like women that they position themselves around. I've said for a long time that having a personal relationship with someone is like giving your cosign of them, because we assume that the people that we trust like other people that we would trust. And so we kind of inherently think my friend of my friend or the boyfriend of my friend is a safe person because I think my friend is a safe person. But I don't necessarily think that translates when we're talking about branding, commercialization, and the selling of a product. That's not to say that selling a product cannot be harmful. That's not what I'm saying. But in this conversation about Sydney Sweeney, I thought it was really interesting that the number one criticism that she's receiving is that like she's setting women back 10 years.
Hello, you dirty little boys. Are you interested in my body? Wash.
She's like making it harder for feminists by selling a soap that's being branded as her bathwater, beyond the fact that she never agreed to be our feminist icon, and the fact that I don't think you can just put that on a woman for existing and being visible while existing. Women are allowed to define themselves as they see fit, but also like get the bag in the way that they see fit. You guys might also be shocked to find that I don't have anything against like S workers either. But what I've always found really interesting is that even though women like Sydney Sweeney get demonized, and women in general that we see sharing their stories on the internet about their boyfriends and their lives, and even women who just really want a relationship and are like, oh, you know, you're pick me, not the women who are like down with all women, you should be on the people's feet. Women who just express an interest in romantic love, they really get beat up on by like the women in the dating men is a humiliation ritual space, which again, you're allowed to believe that. You're allowed to stay away from men at all costs. You're allowed to be celibate. I'm celibate, right? But I also like, I don't have aggression towards women who are not, if that makes sense, because Like what they do with their bodies, it actually doesn't impact me. And I think it's actually more misogynistic to hold women accountable for misogynistic men because if the way women behaved and carried themselves and presented themselves to the world was capable of protecting women in the sense of like controlling the way men behaved, like we wouldn't have problems. Like the pick-me's would have won the war a very long time ago. But men who are gonna be misogynistic, men who are gonna abuse, men who don't respect women, like they're gonna do that no matter what woman you are. There are nuns who have been like SA'd. Like it doesn't matter who you are, how you dress, how you behave. If a man decides he wants to be aggressive, if he decides that women are worth nothing, like there's nothing you can do. And to me, this idea that like women need to pander to men in a way that like tries to get men to be safe people, like that's really problematic to me, guys. It's really giving like, how can we expect the boys to pay attention in class if the girls have short skirts? Which naturally segues into one of my favorite quotes that like whether you're up on a pedestal or down on your knees, it's a male fantasy. And so a man who has conditional respect for you, like this type of woman is worthy of protection and respect, this kind of woman is not. That to me is one of the most dangerous types of men because he's tricking you into believing that he's safe. But the moment you step outside of this performance, this show, or just like this ideal of perfection, now you qualify to be abused. And also to me, it's giving very much like choose her, not me. Like I dance the dance the best, and so she deserves the downfall, which was my conversation about the young S worker Julia when she came out and said she regretted the scene she did with Bunny Blue.
I do regret it, but I'm so traumatized.
And people didn't believe her, and they didn't believe that she was worthy of protection from harm because of the type of work she was in, which you think it makes sense, but it's like, today we're talking about S workers, but tomorrow you should care because if it can happen to her, it can happen to you. It cannot advocate for why it's okay for another human to receive distress, especially if you share a marginalization with them without consenting to be next. They did not burn witches, my love. They burned women. Witch was a catch-all term for woman I don't like. If you consent to the burning of another based on a technicality, eventually the definition will evolve to catch up to you and bring the flames to your door. And so let's just get off of this tip that like there's anything a woman could do to deserve harm. Which kind of brings us back to what I wanted to talk about today, which is Sabrina Carpenter, who I really love. And I really love like the branding for the new album because I feel like it's a very much more overt version of what she's already been doing, which is be a loud and proud heterosexual woman who loves male attention, which I don't think it's inherently a bad thing because what did I say before? I have no beef or aggression towards women who still want to be in relationships. Sometimes I want to have a nuanced conversation about how like if you decide to do and chase certain things, then when or if that comes back on you, please do not throw labor on women when you kind of knew where that might land. So like really navigate yourself in a way that like is safe and responsible and smart, even though you're not responsible for the behavior of the man, but like just kind of know where that can lead, which is what I was saying in my conversation about like casual relationships and how they can be fun and a growth experience, but you have to have like the right mindset about what to expect. But I feel very curiously about why it is that people will hate like a Sydney Sweeney or other women in general who are very overtly male-centric in their marketing and branding. Because also when we're talking about like public figures, I always see it as marketing and brand. I work in marketing brand. I create feelings and sentiments around products. I take this from being just something to wipe your ass with. A luxurious self-care experience based on the colors I pick, the words I use, the ideas I spin. I run a branding agency, you guys. Like I craft narratives about products and people and public personas. And so like it's never ever like a criticism of a human being when I'm talking about it, because I personally am not lost in the sauce of like people aren't we can craft an honest persona, but that's not them. That's a persona they crafted specifically for the public. But like, I think it's very interesting. I say all that to say, I think it's very interesting that like there are certain types of male-centric personas that play really well and others that women just freaking hate. For example, one of the more interesting comments that I've received on this conversation about Sabrina Carpenter was that Sabrina Carpenter is just a Taylor Swift that says the F word. And I love that because over the trajectory of Taylor Swift's career, even though she has delved into like more interpersonal and self-awareness and personal growth themes, a lot of her music is largely still about relationships. And sometimes as a fan of her writing, I do feel like she does dumb the writing down a little bit to be very high school Tumblr, to kind of pander very basic ideas about relationships with men. Like, that's what people like. And I mean, again, I'm not mad at her because that's the branding that makes her the most money, because women want to hear that. And I guess it all ultimately leads to a question of like, how serious is this dating men is a humiliation ritual 4B, no more dating, sick of men, down with men movement, if the women in that audience, so like we can't acknowledge that there might be a little split, but I am speaking specifically to what's on my FYP, what's on my algorithm. Why is it that there is this overlap of women who are in the anti-dating until shit gets better? Makes sense to me. Like anti-dating space, but also obsessed with media, music, and celebrities whose whole shtick is male attention, relationships, and just deeply, deeply wanting romance. Which again, you're allowed to want those things and want respect. I kind of think that one of the biggest points, I won't say the point, because one thing that really pisses me off is when queer girlies enter the conversation about gender inequality, gender-based abuse, and make it seem like if straight women were to simply close their legs, they wouldn't have a problem, when nobody cares who you're sleeping with when they look at you, see that you're a woman, and like degrade you and decide that they don't respect you. So like that's very silly. So we won't say this is the main point, but a very major point of the movement is that you deserve love and respect in your romantic relationships, right? So it's not just like F all men, they're the worst, unless it is. Cool. I don't care if you hate men, go for it, babes. Makes sense to me. But it's like, that's not the totality of it. A lot of it came from the fact that women are like, I don't want to date unless I am loved or unless I get something out of it. That's where you get like the sheer seven and the other women that people call misandrist. Misandry doesn't exist. That was always like a sleeper cell propaganda campaign that was created by the menace movements back in like what, the 80s or the 90s, which I also don't see a problem with, because it's like you can decide to discriminate in relationships as you see fit. But I want to know why that's becoming a special brand of excuse for why it's okay to be hateful towards other women. Like I said, I feel like we are advocating so hard that we're coming back to like freaking misogyny, freaking gender-based oppression. There's a bit of like infantilization of women that's going on, to where if a woman were to say, I like casual relationships, I don't want commitment, I just want pleasure, people will like dogpile and say, no, girly, you are disrespecting yourself and your body, you're letting men disrespect you, you're letting him lower your worth. And so all of a sudden people are spewing like incel talking points that like, if a man touches you, you're dirty. If a man doesn't want to marry you, you're dirty. Like, we're saying that you have to be property to some degree to be able to make it worthwhile to be in proximity to women. So again, we're taking agency away from like straight women, and God bless you. I know that's a struggle in and of itself. But it's becoming like just plain mean, when like it's a very human thing to want romantic connection. It's a very human thing to want pleasure. But now we're talking about these things through the lens of like, there's a proper way to conduct yourself as a young woman. So we're back into the purity culture, which doesn't shock me because like, look who the president of the United States is. Like, these things don't happen in a bottle. Like, we've been trending towards conservatism for a minute. The soft girl era in a lot of ways is a regression back into like traditional norm states. It is because of capitalism. We don't have time to get into that. I said this is going to be quick. So like, there's a lot of external things happening. And in fact, somewhere in my drafts, I do have a very in-depth article that will later be on the Substack about historically how culture becomes more conservative the harder economic times get. So that's the thing. But this isn't then. This is now, where we're a little more educated, we're a little more woke. And the woke people are the people leading these witch hunts for like who is a proper woman and who isn't. And I do also think we have to circle back to the fact that I think part of the silliness and the dismissiveness of Sabrina Carpenter's brand does have to do with the fact that she is a petite woman. So there is a tendency for people to take that a little less seriously. But also within that, there have been times where she has played into the fact that like people might liken her to an underage girl. Like, there's a nonsense outro where she referenced the fact that she looks underage. There was a Lolita photo shoot. So some of that positioning was done by her team, but her fans don't seem to mind that kind of pandering. But no matter where you are on the spectrum of self-preservation, because that's really what it comes down to, like, how do I protect myself in this climate that is co-signing violence against women? No matter where you are on the spectrum, I just want to encourage you to keep your eyes open, keep your intuition open. Don't let people play on your fears or your fantasies, okay? And so part of why I created the Know Thyself relationship boundary tracker, which is for all types of relationships, I talked about on Instagram that I used it to decide to leave a job earlier this year because I realized I had a boss that was constantly gaslighting and invalidating me, and then love bombing me into staying into the role to catch those patterns. And so like, I created that so that women could have a clear database of like what is happening in their relationships day to day, how they're being treated to understand when things are just lip service and when things just give them a weird gut feeling. It also has a section where women can explore their motivations for seeking connection to understand the difference between when you want a relationship and when you just want maybe like some intimacy or community. And so it has tabs for that. It also has a tab for helping you to help you understand the spectrum of green and red flags. It has over 100 examples of red and green flags, how to navigate them, and a way for you to kind of check which ones play on your emotional triggers. You can check that out in the Katie Rocks merch shop. And for those of you who struggle with obsessive thoughts or really not understanding when something is a red or green flag, or if like your trauma response is just overreactive, which I totally understand as a CPTSD girly, like so many things scare and trigger me, but it's really like my framework. And I have to calm down and see things as they are before I can kind of like assess if there's an attack going on. For those of you who struggle with that, we also have a brand new workbook coming out that is Notion based called The Eightfold Recovery System, which will take you through 8 different systems of kind of evaluating what actions to take when you're triggered that help you walk through. A lot of people said it's very similar to CBT, actually based on the Buddhist principle of desire being at the heart of suffering. Though I'm not a therapist, it has been therapist approved, and it is a-religious, as in it's not religious at all. It's just helping you apply those principles to everyday struggles. So check that out. And if you like this conversation, make sure you like and subscribe. But let me know in the comment section why you think that the feminist movement has become a gateway drug to women putting other women down to feel a little more superior in virtue signaling.